Harvey Carignan. Maybe you've heard the name, or maybe you've heard him referred to by his monikers, the Wanted Killer or Harv the Hammer. Harvey Carignan was a serial killer, infamous for luring his victims with help wanted ads in the 1970s and killing them with a hammer. He was convicted 3 times for murder and twice for attempted murder. He remains at the top of the suspect list in at least 3 other cold cases, and investigators have long believed he's responsible for other deaths across the United States and Canada. He was born in Fargo and spent his entire childhood in North Dakota before his family moved and settled in Duluth, Minnesota. He died in 2023 in an Oak Park Heights, Minnesota maximum security prison, where he was serving a life sentence for a killing spree that ended in Minnesota in 1974. Before January of this year, I had never heard of Harvey Carignan, which is odd. I cover true crime in Minnesota and the Dakotas. After talking to colleagues and friends in the area, I learned I wasn't alone. Despite being a once infamous serial killer, his name had slipped into obscurity. But his story had been told before. Ann Rule wrote about Harvey in the 1983 hit book, The Wanted Killer. It's a detailed account of his life and crimes. But even as detailed as it was, I still had questions after finishing the book. I wanted to learn more about his childhood in North Dakota. What contributed to Harvey becoming a killer? Could he be connected to other cold cases from the 1970s? Maybe even cases we've covered on The Vault? And were his victims who survived still alive? Throughout this investigation, we sought to answer those questions, and what we found went far beyond what I expected. We dug into Harvey's childhood in North Dakota. We interviewed a world-renowned psychologist who studies killers like Harvey. We created a detailed timeline of his life, where he lived, where he traveled, and used that information to revisit cold cases from 1972 and 1973. We obtained previously sealed court transcripts that include testimony from Harvey himself and 2 victims who lived. And we found one of those victims, a woman who, as a teenager in 1974, survived Harvey's hammer and lived to identify him, which ultimately put him behind bars for the rest of his life and ended his killing spree. After more than 50 years of silence, she was ready to tell her story for the first time. I'm Trisha Taurinskas. I'm an investigative reporter with Forum News Service, and this is part 1 of Crafting a Killer, the Harvey Carignan story. Before I sat down with Harvey's victim, who survived his attack in 1974, I had to find her. I first learned her story through newspaper articles from the 1970s, published throughout the country. The young woman who survived a serial killer's attack against all odds and, seemingly, through sheer will. Her story played out in more detail when a judge ruled in our favor and released the previously sealed trial transcripts from Harvey Carignan's 1974 trial for her attempted murder. Hundreds of pages, Harvey Carignan's words, from his own mouth, from the stand, and victims' accounts of his attacks. The transcripts also included one key piece of information I did not know, but was searching for. I learned the name of the nursing student who survived Harvey Carignan's attack. To protect her privacy, we will not be using her first name. We will refer to her as Diane. Naturally, I wanted to know what became of her. Did she go on to live a full life? Was she even still alive? After digging around on genealogy websites, I learned that she did get married. 2 years after her attack, she went on to have kids, a family of her own. And I learned she is still alive. Eventually, I found her phone number, but Once I had the number, I hesitated to call at first. These are tricky situations. You don't want to re-traumatize a victim out of the blue, but there is always a chance they want to speak. So I called, and from the moment she said hello, she was warm, kind. I explained what I was working on and told her that if this was all too much, she could tell me to take a hike, and I would. Instead, Diane said she was ready to tell her story, to address misconceptions and misrepresentations of what happened to her that day in 1974. And she knew that her story might be of value to other families whose loved ones might have died at the hands of Harvey Carignan, but whose cases have gone cold without justice or answers. Maybe there was a detail in her story that could help investigators with others. So we made a plan, and the following week, I set up my recorder on a picnic table in a Minnesota park and waited. Diane pulled up. She had a friend with her. Her husband waited in the vehicle within eyesight. They were there for support and safety. Before our recorded conversation began, she explained that her support system was there because even after all of these years, even after Harvey Carignan had died, she thought there was a chance that Harvey could have hired someone when he was alive to deliver on his promise to finish the job and kill her. And when I heard that, I saw another layer of the carnage Harvey Carignan left behind, the fear that he left on this earth from beyond the grave. We sat down under the late morning summer sun, and Diane told me her story. September 14th, 1974, Minneapolis, Minnesota. It was a Saturday. Diane was a 19-year-old nursing student studying at Abbott Northwestern Hospital. And on that weekend morning, her day off from school, she had some errands to run. First stop, a downtown department store.
It was only a couple blocks from my dorm where I lived. And it was a Saturday morning, and I was going there to pick up a birthday present for one of the other students. And I had an older car, and sometimes when I'm driving, my car would just stall. And if you just wait a while, then it would start again. Well, I pulled into the parking lot, and that's what happened. It stalled. And then he approached me to ask me if I needed help.
The man was Harvey Carignan. He was huge, 6 feet 3 inches tall, roughly 275 pounds, with a muscular top-heavy build. Based on videos I saw of him from the mid-1970s, he had dark hair, a receding hairline, and large, bushy sideburns. He was intimidating, especially to a young petite woman like Diane. From the moment she laid eyes on Harvey, she was hesitant. There was no way she was going to accept a ride from the man if he offered. But Diane did need help moving her vehicle out of the way. Her car had stalled right in the entrance to the parking lot, so she let him push her car out of the entrance to a parking space, and she hoped he would leave her alone after that. She had dealt with these car issues before, and she knew, based on previous experience, that her car would eventually start up again. She just needed to give it some time. But Harvey insisted. He told her he was a mechanic, that he could fix her car. She declined the offer. Then Harvey did something that nobody could have seen coming. He got into his car, and instead of driving away, he pulled his car alongside hers, so that the passenger door of his vehicle met the driver's side door of hers. He walked alongside to the back of the car, with Harvey in front of her, and the car door creating a barricade behind her. He told her to get into his car. She was trapped.
He had his body positioned to where there was no way I could get out of the car to get away. And I knew right away I was in trouble. I could see it in his face, his demeanor, everything changed. I look around, there's nobody in the parking lot.
I want to stop here and clarify something that has bothered Diane for more than 40 years. It goes back to Ann Rule's 1983 book, The Wanted Killer. In the early 1980s, Ann Rule asked Diane to interview for the book. At the time, Diane was trying to move on, and Harvey Carignan was still alive. He was locked up in prison, but he was still out there. So Diane declined the interview. When the book hit the shelves in 1983, Diane was shocked by the way Ann Rule described the parking lot encounter. The book made it sound as though Diane had willingly accepted a ride from Harvey. That wasn't what happened.
Yeah, it was like I knew, I just didn't feel like I had any options. There was, I couldn't run because he had me blocked, and he had control of me the whole time, that there was no way I could get away.
Ann Rule's book was wildly successful, and because it remains the most detailed published account of Harvey's life and crimes, it has become the source for countless articles and podcast episodes about him. Which means that version of what happened in the parking lot has been repeated for decades. Diane wanted to correct the record. She never willingly got into Harvey Carignan's car. She had no choice. Once she was in the car, Harvey drove the 1968 pale green Chevrolet Caprice away from the department store, down Lake Street, until the cityscape began to fade from sight. They were now on Highway 7, headed toward rural Carver County, roughly 30 miles southwest of Minneapolis. During the ride, Harvey talked and talked. He told her about driving some girl up to Duluth to drop off a pickup truck. He split the money with her. He said his stomach hurt from ulcers. He once got into a fight with a man and almost killed him because he wasn't aware of his own strength. He was a judo expert, a karate expert. He had a family, a wife and a son. He owned a nice home. Diane wasn't buying any of it.
I do remember him talking. He was talking all the time. I didn't even believe his name. He told me his name was Harvey, but I didn't believe that was his name.
Then they turned off onto a gravel road, and the conversation shifted. Harvey said he and his wife weren't getting along. He had met a girl in the city and paid her $30 a week. He offered Diane the same arrangement if she couldn't pay to have her car fixed. She declined the offer, and he turned the car around. He asked her to sit closer, next to him. She refused. And then Harvey's temper started to flare. The tone of his voice changed. He grabbed her by the hair, gave her no choice, and forced her to perform sexual acts. Repeatedly. Diane began throwing up. He told her he was going to sell her to men for $100, that she would have to bring all of the money back to him, and he wouldn't stop until she learned to love it. Diane was crying throughout all of this, begging him to stop, to let her go. Harvey had no plans of letting her go.
He kept telling me he was going to kill me, that he was going to have to kill me because otherwise I would talk, and I promised that I wouldn't say anything. And he said, well, if you did, he said, I'd come back and throw acid in your face.
Instead, with one hand, he choked her 3 times.
He tried to choke me, and then as soon as I was about ready to pass out, he would let go. But it was always just with his hand. Just one hand? Yeah. And I had the bruises on my neck that show, his hands were big. And his hands, covered my neck.
I want to pause here. Even as horrific as all of this sounds, it's not the full story of what happened to Diane. The trial transcripts give a more detailed account, but it's far too graphic and difficult to actually say out loud. What Diane experienced is beyond horrendous, which makes her survival all the more astonishing. Harvey parked the car and laid a blanket down on the ground next to the passenger side door. He forced her to lie down and knelt over her. He punched her in the stomach. He slapped her. He sat on her. He told her he liked to watch her suffer. Then he walked away back to the car and got his hammer. He used the hammer to sexually assault her. When he was done, he told her to get dressed and lit up a cigarette. She put her clothes back on, green slacks and a dress sweater. He told her to turn her head while he put his hammer away in the car.
I was sitting on the blanket, and he said, I'm going to go put the hammer away. He said, but I don't want you to turn around and look. He said, don't watch me.
She turned around, and everything went black. Diane opened her eyes to the sight of steep dirt walls. She had been thrown into the bottom of a deep ravine. The back of her skull was severely fractured. Harvey had used the hammer to deliver what he believed would be the fatal blow.
When I became conscious, I was covered in blood, and I didn't know where the blood was coming from at the time, and I didn't have any pain at the time. But I just, I had to keep wiping my face so I could see, because there's blood all over. And I remember thinking, if I just lay here, I'm just going to die. Which, I was kind of peaceful with that. But then I remembered, I think it was just the night before, my sister had called, and that she was pregnant with her first child. And I wanted to see my nephew.
Covered in blood, too weak to stand, she gave it her all.
It was down inside some hole. It was not like a regular hole, but it was big. And so I kept trying to crawl out of there, and I'd get so far and I would slide back down because I was really weak. But I finally did get out.
There she was, surrounded by acres and acres of fields, and she couldn't walk. Diane isn't one to give up, though. Her legs didn't work, but her elbows did. Inch by inch, she army crawled her way across the field.
I just go a teeny bit, and then I would, have to rest. And it was a long ways to the road, and I knew I didn't want to waste any time zigzagging, so there was a fence along that field. So I thought I'll crawl over to that fence so I can stay along that fence. That way I'm going a straight line.
After more than an hour of dragging her body across that field, she was close enough to the road to possibly get the attention of drivers. More than once, she saw a car drive by, and she waved, hoping they'd slow down. But they didn't.
When I would see a car coming, I would try to pull myself up on that fence so I could wave to get help. But it was too far away. They couldn't see that I was hurt. People would just wave and wave back and go on.
And then a young boy, around 12 years old, pulled up in a tractor.
And then I was close enough where he could see all the blood and see I was hurt. And he was real scared. And he says, just stay right there. I'll go get help. And then I think I kind of passed out until they came.
She was taken by ambulance, first to a hospital in Carver County, and was eventually transferred to a Minneapolis hospital. She underwent surgery to graft together her fractured skull. Her parents were warned that she might not survive the surgery, but she did. Throughout all of this, Diane's memory remained intact. Harvey had attacked her from behind, hitting her in the back of the head, the area that controls mobility and coordination. But he hadn't taken her memory. Detectives spoke with Diane while she was recovering from surgery. On 2 occasions, they brought her stacks of photographs, photo lineups of men who matched her description.
The first time they brought me a book of pictures to look at, I looked through them and I picked out one picture that I said, this looks kind of like him, but if it's him, it's an old picture because it doesn't look quite right. And then, I don't know, it was a couple of days later or whatever, they brought me another set of pictures, and I was looking at those, and as soon as I saw his picture, I said, this is him. Yeah, I knew for sure that was him.
It was Harvey Carignan, a man with a record, a man who had been convicted of murder in Alaska nearly 20 years earlier, a man who was also on the radar of Seattle detectives for the 1973 murder of 15-year-old Kathy Sue Miller. Kathy had gone missing on her way to meet Harvey for a job interview. Her body was found a month later. The cause of death? Blunt force trauma to the head. Check back next week for part 2 of Crafting a Killer, the Harvey Carignan story. If you're looking for a simple way to support the work we do on The Vault, you can give this podcast a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. Positive reviews help us grow our audience, which means more visibility for the cases we cover. The Vault is a Forum Communications podcast. I'm Trisha Taurinskas. Thank you for listening.